get the ball, I promise you one thing. We're going to hit somebody and we're taking downfield for a touchdown. I guarantee you that. Look at me. Look at me. Let's go. We got 30 minutes. Let's go. For the rest of our lives. Let's go.
That's a good way to start the video off with the old mic muted. Welcome in, college football fans. We'll try that again. What a great week one we've had so far. It's been super entertaining. I am just absolutely surprised in some ways and underwhelmed in others. And it's been a lot of fun so far. Mason, welcome in, man. Hope you're having a good trip. I hope you enjoyed some of that college football. It's been pretty exciting so far, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Out here in Scotland, on holiday, as they'd say here, just enjoying myself, and trying to sneak away from the wife every now and then and watch some football when I can. We all know how that goes when we're on vacation in the fall, right? But yeah, it was fun to watch. It's been fun to keep up with, and just kind of in my spare time watching highlights and just enjoying it. And really, we're really getting an idea of where teams are at this stage in the season. Now we know, we've got a full season to play, so I try not to have any knee-jerk reactions, but it is a good little temperature gauge of where they're at right now. It's been really interesting seeing, where teams are in comparison to where we maybe thought that they were. But yeah, what'd you see? I mean, I didn't get to see every game, like I said, just being on vacation, but what's kind of your overall read of where teams are right now, and what were some highlights that you saw and like to share?
Well, I think there was different things to gather from different teams and different situations in game. You kind of started the weekend off with Florida, and I think we, unfortunately for Gators fans, I think we learned a lot about Florida, and I think that it's kind of a quack and duck situation, and if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And I think the Florida Gators were trying to tell us who they are this year, and a lot of people that had underwhelming expectations for them, I think they're kind of sitting in the back saying I told us so. But there was different things to gather from different teams. I saw teams progressing. I saw teams that we thought we were going to be really great, and we've all got them destined for the playoff, and things weren't exactly as probably as smooth as what we would have liked to see, or that would have reinforced our feelings on those teams. But overall, one of the biggest things that I gathered from this weekend is from the transfer portal. It was really unbelievable to see how many guys came through the transfer portal and came up big for their team this weekend. And it just goes to show you how much this is going to change and has changed college football. The middling and mediocre teams are not as bad as they were, I don't think. I think it has brought the level, the gap between the upper level, the upper echelon of teams and the lower. I think there's less of that. I think there's a whole lot more middle class going on than haves and have-nots. And I really think that it's due mostly in part to talent being able to transition from team to team almost seamlessly.
Right.
So that's kind of what I gathered from this week. I don't think we have a great college football team right now. I don't think there's one great one that's just overwhelmingly the favorite. I don't see that right now. And, we kind of have knee-jerk reactions when it comes to this stuff, and because it's all that we have to go on is week 0 and week 1. Week 1 actually made me feel a little better about USC because no other team showed any type of perfection. So there was teams that played really great defense and played really pretty bad offense, to be honest. And USC was on the other spectrum of that. So who's to say that they're not, a contender, to beat one of those teams? So it definitely taught me a lot. But let's get into these games, man, and we'll start off with the Gators and the Utes starting on Thursday. Did you get to watch any of that?
I did. I watched a little bit of that, and mostly had to pay attention to the highlights. But definitely, kind of like you said, I think Florida's just a really bad team this year. I'm just going to be as blunt as possible here, and just have to apologize to Gators fans. I promise that this isn't my.
Oh, they know. Go read Twitter. They know.
Yeah. This isn't my subjective, Georgia football, opinion of our rival, Gators, but this is just a really bad team, and I do think that they've got their best ball ahead of them, but it's not looking good for Billy Napier and the Gators. They really do look like, maybe a 5-win team, which is about where I had them, heading into the season. And I thought there might be a chance that they would surprise me. And they certainly have some players on the edges, but overall, offensive line looked as bad as I thought they would. Not terrible on defense, but, very middle of the pack.
And they were thrown to the fire by that offense. I mean, over and over.
Yeah.
I mean, they really were.
Yeah. So, and that's one of the things I noticed just in general is a lot of bad offensive line play across the league. There really wasn't any offensive line that just stood out as being completely dominant. Which is surprising. But yeah, with Florida, I mean, and kudos to Utah too. I thought Barnes played really well. I think that they're going to need Cam Rising, towards the end of the season if they're planning on winning the Pac-12. And all that, but and credit to Utah and their student section. I thought they played a big role in the game, and it really affected Florida and their communication, and obviously drew some penalties. So you think, okay, Florida's used to playing in the SEC, so they should be able to go out there and it not affect them. Well, that was not the case. It was a huge impact on the game early on, and I think it really set the pace for Utah to get that home field advantage, and it ended up, playing a role in the end.
Yeah. Well, Graham Mertz was 31 of 44 for 333 yards, but it was only averaging 7.6 yards. And so my thing is, I don't know what Florida really was expecting. I mean, Graham Mertz, where in his career have you gotten the impression that he's a quarterback that needs to throw 44 times? Right. I thought the whole point of this offense was to take it off of his shoulders and him try to throw like the old Jake days, 17 to 20 passes a game, and distribute that way. But Florida, I mean, golly, man, if you look at their rushing yards for the game, they had, if you factor in sacks, they had 13 yards rushing.
Yeah.
I mean, 21 carries, 13 yards. That's 0.6 yards a carry, guys. I mean, that is just absolutely horrible for a team that's supposed to be priding themselves on physical run game. Now, we're going to do the bet and show stuff later this week, but my under did hit, but it didn't hit the way that I thought it would, with both teams scoring just a few points. 24-11 was the final. Utah won. I was thinking this game was going to be like 20-17 or something like that. So still in the same point frame there. But Bryson Barnes, Nate Johnson, and Devon Vele. Devon Vele had a pass. He didn't play quarterback, but Nate Johnson and Bryson Barnes each come in and play. Nate Johnson, I liked him. I liked his ability to move around the pocket and take off and run. He had a 27-yard touchdown run, but did not look very good in the pocket. Had a hard time staying in the pocket, even with a Florida team that honestly wasn't really even getting after the quarterback a whole lot. I don't even think they had 0 sacks. So they weren't getting after the quarterback at all. And that's going to be another thing for Florida. I mean, you talked about the defense. I think the defense is probably by the end of the year will probably be a little bit better for Florida, I think. But if you can't, 0 sacks ain't going to get it, especially when they played a running quarterback too. Like you're going to have chances to tackle him for a loss where it's not necessarily a quarterback pressure situation. They got no pressure at all. And that's pretty troublesome also for Florida. If you're not going to be able to run the ball and stop the run and get after the quarterback, then you're going to have problems. I mean, Utah only ran for 105 yards, but their main intention was not to run it. And they had like 8 guys with carries. I mean, their intention wasn't to run the ball. It didn't seem like on Florida. And they did it even with the small amount of carries they took with their running back and everything. So all in all, Utah looked about like I thought they would, honestly. Physical, pretty good on the lines of scrimmage. Honestly, the defense looked great, but it was because I don't think Florida's offense is very good. And that's the hardest part about these week ones is figuring out is it a good defense playing a bad offense, or is it a bad offense playing a good defense? We're going to find out. But all in all, it was all Utah Utes in that one.
Yep.
So let's keep it moving here. So that same day we had UCF and Kent State. I won't stay on this one very long, but Kent State is obviously a team that we talked about that's absolutely been picked apart by the transfer portal and coaching departures and things like that. But all that being said, this was UCF's first game as a Big 12 member, and they looked the part. They ran the ball all over them. I mean, Gus Malzahn's teams tend to do that, but that was something to see. They put up a bunch of points and on 56-6 against Kent State. Keeping it moving down the line on that same Thursday, NC State and UConn. Did you get a chance to see any highlights on this one?
I didn't really watch the highlights. I mean, I saw kind of what was posted in your video that you that's actually playing right now, but I didn't get a chance to watch it. I thought it actually, I think that my play hit. I didn't actually bet this or anything, but I did think that UConn would cover, keep it close.
Yeah, they. Well, this was probably the biggest game in UConn history. The place was packed out, and it was a really entertaining game. It really was, and it was a defensive slugfest there for a good while. And NC State finally pulled away, but NC State is a team that a lot of people talked about as kind of like a dark horse sleeper type in the ACC, and I just don't really see that. I didn't see that from this game at all. It was, like I said, it was a good game, and UConn was really, really hot last year. But Brennan Armstrong was 17 of 26, 155 yards. Nothing to write home about at the quarterback position. That's pretty underwhelming at 6 yards per completion there.
He had rushed the ball pretty well, though. Had close to 100 yards rushing. So
yeah. And as a team, they ran the ball for 209 yards, and he did. He had 96 yards and a long of 11. It's just a little bit underwhelming. I feel like if you're going to be a contender in the ACC, you probably need to be putting away UConn. But as I said, Jim Mora and the UConn Huskies have definitely gotten better as the last couple of years have went on. One of the more exciting games on Thursday, in my opinion, was the Nebraska at Minnesota game. Man, this one was really entertaining. And poor Nebraska fans, man, golly, they are snake bitten. They are absolutely snake bitten. There's nothing they can do, man. They lose the game at the end every freaking time.
The same old song and dance.
It is the same old song and dance.
It's just dressed differently is all it is, you know. It's pretty incredible to see it. You know, them just drop the ball again. I mean,
yeah.
A defensive game, though, it was very fun to watch. You know, and I did have to watch the highlights for most of it. I kind of peeped in every now and then live, just because I could tell it was such a good game. But you know, once again, Nebraska is just falling short, and I do think that they'll grow from this. I'm not expecting, you know, Matt Rule to be a contender really.
Yeah. Well, you know, it was very entertaining to watch, and I got to hand it to Matt Rule. He didn't do as good as some of the first year coaches did today, and we'll get to the to Mr. Sanders here in just a bit, but you know, Jeff Sims really just struggled and kind of weighed the team down. Unfortunately, he had 3 interceptions, and he was 11 of 19 for 114 yards. He ran the ball for 91 yards, which was an average of 4.8 per carry. So ran the ball a lot with Jeff Sims, and I think it was a good strategy to run with him. It was productive, but this game was 3-0 at halftime, so it was not a ton of offense going on. And but anyway, this one ends up going down to the last second, and Minnesota rallies late to beat Nebraska 13-10 and ruin Rule's debut. So yeah. It was definitely entertaining. It was dramatic. You know, it was everything you're looking for in a week 1 college football game. And a common trend between all these games is, honestly, you know, offense is struggling week 1. You know, defense is going to have to catch, or defense is ahead. Offense is going to have to catch up. You know, it was definitely evident in a lot of different games this week, no doubt.
Well, and they did have that one play that didn't go their way at the goal line. I thought it was a touchdown. You know, they score that and they win. You know, yeah. So there was a couple of bad calls like that. You know, but that's again, same old song and dance for Nebraska. You know, that's what we've come to expect. You know, it's special teams and ref, you know, calls and things like that. You know, that they've got to straight up win the game. You know, they can't let it come down to decisions like that. But they have had some bad luck. You know, it's fair to note. But at the same time, you know, I was expecting Sims to play a little bit better. I thought that he may grow a little bit coming over from Tech, but, you know, I don't think that he's really grown a lot since his freshman year as a quarterback. It seems like he's still struggling with his turning the ball over a ton, and, you know, he certainly has all the attributes, but I haven't seen a whole lot of growth from him at the quarterback position.
Yeah, it's that third down efficiency. Each team was about 50% in the game, which was pretty remarkable considering there wasn't a lot of yards, not a lot of offense going on. But Nebraska did a pretty good job slowing down the run. They only allowed 55 yards rushing, but they turned the ball over 4 times. And that's, you know, 3 interceptions and a fumble. I mean, that cost them the game right there. So it was a very, very entertaining game to watch, no doubt about it. One of my favorite ones of the week at that point in the week anyway. I'm interested to see what Nebraska does the rest of the year. This is, I think they're going to be pretty feisty, and I think they're going to be a team that's going to be hard to put down. And Jeff Sims is going to have his moments that he you know, of turnovers and things like that. but he's definitely got some serious playmaking ability. And I think that their best football is ahead of them, just like Florida.
Yeah.
I feel like Florida's best football has not been played yet this year, and I feel the same way about Nebraska. Missouri and South Dakota don't need to stay on this long, but I did have a couple little comments on this one, and I'm not sure if you saw it, but we'll let you kind of finish this one up here in just a second. But Brady Cook throws the ball too damn hard for Missouri. I don't know. He's one of these guys, man, where he's like, I don't know. He's got a laser beam attached to his freaking shoulder socket, and just got to show you like every throw, that he can throw it, 62 miles an hour or whatever, and it's just
Right.
like, it really cost him. I mean, he was throwing it and hitting players in the side of the helmet, I mean, it was just like guys aren't even out of their break and they're getting smoked in the face mask with a football. It's just the timing was a little bit off. It seemed like he was maybe a little bit too hyped up. Maybe that's what it was. But overall, I like Missouri. I came away feeling better about Missouri than I went into the game. Their defense is really good. Missouri has got a solid defense this year, and they're going to give some people fits. I can promise you're going to have a hard time running the ball on them for sure. So that's usually a sign of a good defense in college. Whenever you can make your opponent one-dimensional, you give yourself a chance to make adjustments and compete with whatever dimension the offense has to run in. Well, they've got that, and I think that their defense is improved and the way they're recruiting and everything. I think Missouri's trending in the right direction on that side of the ball. The passing game was just not. It just wasn't there for me. I don't know. There was just something missing. And South Dakota didn't look very good. It wasn't that Missouri didn't have opportunities. There was opportunities, and it seemed like it took them a while to take advantage of those. But all in all, I came away feeling pretty daggum good about Missouri this year and the direction they're heading. I think they got a pretty good chance to finish over 500, which is what they've done. They finished 500, I think, 3 or 4 years in a row now. So yeah, I think that maybe this team can get to 7-5 or better. It's going to depend on the rest of the East in the SEC, but I really liked what I saw out of the defense, particularly. Did you get a chance to look at this one?
I didn't really get to see this one. I saw a few highlights. I saw that Sam Horn played really well as well. I know that there's supposed to be a competition going on there. I don't know how many snaps necessarily Sam Horn got, but maybe he ends up overtaking Brady Cook. You mentioned being a little bit too hard on the throw in there. Maybe Sam Horn comes in and has a little bit more touch. I didn't necessarily get to watch him play, but from everything I've heard and from the whispers, he's been doing really well in practice. So now you've got Missouri in the East, right? So when and I can just tell by the stat line, they played really well. Obviously played great on defense. Tough to tell when they're facing South Dakota, right? But I think that the game that we've had circled for Missouri all offseason was week 3 against Kansas State. That's still going to be kind of the real temperature gauge for them to understand, is this real or not, for Missouri. I tend to think that it is. I do think that they have a lot of momentum in recruiting right now as well. So maybe they carry some of that into the regular season. But after week 3 against Kansas State, they really should be, after week 5, they really should be 4-1. And then week 6, they've got LSU. So another good test there. They've got LSU at home, actually. But the other one that I circle is week 7 against South Carolina at home. That's South Carolina's got to win that game. They've got a tough enough schedule as it is not to beat Missouri. But based on what we saw, and we'll get to South Carolina here in a minute, but based on what we saw, it seems like gosh, Missouri might be a better team than South Carolina, even in the East.
Oh,
So
South Carolina's going to have a really hard time blocking them.
yeah,
They're going to have a really, really hard time blocking them.
yeah, that line looked awful.
Yeah, and
just
in
really
contrast to that, Missouri's defensive line looked really good, and they're typically pretty good, but this
Mhm.
one seems a little better than good. Yeah, South Carolina's going to have a really hard time blocking them, in my opinion. Yeah, I think the jury's still out on Missouri's pass defense. I don't think we know yet. I mean, South Dakota, I don't think was able to keep them out of the backfield long enough to get the ball way down the field. So and that's going to be something that's going to help Missouri's pass defense this year. That they're not going to be able to go down the field a whole lot. So we'll keep it moving on down the line. Missouri, I'm going to keep my eye on them, and that was definitely something to gain from watching that. And the offense really picked up there at the end. They really wore South Dakota out. This game was a little closer than what it looked like. All right, we'll go to Friday. We can look at the Miami Hurricanes real quick. Again, not a ton to pull from this game. I think Miami looked a little bit. I think Miami fans would probably say that they were a little bit disappointed in some of the stuff that they saw. But considering looking at the final, box score and stuff, offensively they did their thing. They had one turnover, and it was an interception by Van Dyke. I think that they would be disappointed with the defense a little bit. Just allowing first downs and things like that. They had a couple instances where it was a little bit tough to get off the field. But overall, they got their yards. They didn't score as many points as they probably wanted to, and they held them to 3. So they're being nitpicky. There's a few things that maybe you didn't like, but I thought it was just a week 1 performance type situation for Miami. I don't think it's anything to really hang your hat on or be scared about, but it is what it is, and it was something to glean from it anyway. Did you look at any of that good stuff or the Louisville Georgia Tech game maybe?
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed that game. That was a good one. But yeah, I did see from Miami, a pretty fair game. I saw where Miami of Ohio was doing some trash talking before the game. So, but we all know who the real Miami is after that game, right? But but I thought it was a pretty fair game for Miami. Not a whole lot of shown in the game. But moving on to Louisville and Georgia Tech, what a great game. I don't know what sort of read you had on this, before the game started. I definitely thought that, Georgia Tech would keep it close, and then maybe, Louisville would pull away late. That's pretty much what happened, but I didn't really expect Georgia Tech to cover. I think this, if I'm not mistaken, was about at least a 7.5 point spread. Is that right? Do you recall?
Yeah, it was a 7-point spread.
Okay. I thought Haynes King played well. And I thought that Georgia Tech just has playmakers. That their offense looked really good under Buster Faulkner. They struggle on offensive line, like most teams right now. But I think that there's a lot to like if you're a Georgia Tech fan, and I think this team's headed in the right direction. I was kind of worried for Jeff Brom and Louisville, but they found a way to win it late, and it was a really exciting game. And I did get to peep in on this one every now and then. But what was your takeaway of that game?
Well, this was a really closely contested game, and it was a game of momentum swings, and definitely one of my favorites of the weekend. Georgia Tech is vastly improved. Brent Key has got this team believing. It was kind of like the Colorado situation. Honestly, the games were very similar. I honestly am just now kind of realizing the comparisons of those two, but the way the games went and everything was really similar, except Georgia Tech didn't finish the game out like Colorado did. Haynes King, well, let me just say this: both teams struggled in the first quarter. Then all of a sudden, Georgia Tech, they just blew up all of a sudden. I mean, it was insane. They in the second quarter, I want to say they scored like 20-something points there in the second quarter. I mean, it was incredible. I was trying to pull up the box
28 points
score.
in the second quarter. I got it pulled up, and then only 6 in the fourth.
Yeah, exactly. And that it was finishing the drill that was the issue. And I think Louisville's depth just kind of took over by the end of the game. But Haynes King was 19 of 32, 313 yards, averaged 9.8 yards per play, 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. He really spread the ball around. But somebody who really caught my eye was this guy Chase Lane. He's a receiver for Georgia Tech, and Chase Lane, I believe, came from Texas A&M and came with Haynes King from Texas A&M, and these two have got a connection. So, and Eric Singleton Jr. is really, really fast. I figured out one of the fastest guys in the ACC. Brett Seither looked good. He had some meaningful playing time. He while he only had 2 yards receiving, it was a 2-yard touchdown. And all in all, I was really surprised and happy with what I saw from Georgia Tech. One of the biggest issues, though, defensively is their lack of pressure on the quarterback. They got 0 sacks and didn't have very many hurries. So if Georgia Tech was able to get off after the Jake Plummer at the end of that game, I think they keep him off balance and probably end up winning the game. All in all, the nerds of Atlanta have got to be really, really happy.
Yeah. I was just trying to look up. Do you know what happened to Dominic Blaylock? Is he hurt?
No, he played.
He didn't get any catches or anything. So
he was targeted. It looks like Georgia Tech is using him as a deep play guy.
Yeah.
And he's going to be there for taking deep shots. And they went to him a couple times. One of them was on a penalty, like free play. So it didn't, count once he didn't catch it. So he was targeted a couple times there, but it was he didn't really have an impact on the game necessarily.
Yeah.
So
that's good to hear, at least.
Yeah, he was healthy. He just didn't really contribute. But I think I want to say he returned a punt, also a punt or two. I think he's playing some special teams for Georgia Tech. All in all, Georgia Tech fans, you got to be happy with what you saw, and the Louisville fans, Jeff Brom obviously made some adjustments at halftime because they pretty much shut them down in the second half there and took the victory 39-34. Quickly, we'll go over these last 2 games here. Kansas, Missouri State. Kansas ended up winning 48-17, but it was like everybody else this week. It was a struggle in the first half.
Yeah.
It was a struggle bus that they were driving, and they finally got it straightened back out and out of the ditch and on the road, and figured out how to get after the quarterback a little bit, and ended up taking over the game at the end. But Kansas does win 48-17. The quarterback there, what's his name? The starter that we all love so much. Let me look real quick.
Isn't it Daniels?
Daniels, yeah. So he ended up not playing, which was weird. And Jason Bean ended up. You remember Bean from last year?
Yeah, I had to go with old Beano, Mr. Bean.
Well, Mr. Bean was 22 of 28, 276 yards and 2 TDs with a QBR of 82.7. Pretty slick performance on his part. And I don't know. At this point, I've seen Jason Bean play so much for the Kansas Jayhawks. If I'm a Jayhawks fan or a coach or something, I don't know. I might just be happy with Bean at this point. The other guy can't seem to stay healthy. Was it Jaden Daniel or something like that? He's got like a really close to the same name as the LSU quarterback. Anyway, so Kansas does win that game. And then one of my best bets that I had bet on was Hawaii and the money line. They ended up losing to Stanford 37-24. But one thing that I really gathered from this game, and I'm going to pull this guy's name up because we got to know this dude's name right here. If you don't know Benjamin Urosek that plays tight end for Stanford, then you're missing out because that dude is literally like he is freaking just like Brock Bowers, man. I mean, like it is insane. This guy, he had 9 receptions, 138 yards, averaged 15.3 yards a catch, had a touchdown and a long of 32 yards. He is huge, got awesome hands. He has late hands. He's like a little Gronk. He's like a little Gronk. And I have not heard of this guy. Nobody's talking about him, but I'm telling you right now, Benjamin Urosek, when he goes to the NFL, everybody needs to draft him on your NFL fantasy team because this guy's the real deal. It doesn't matter they were playing Hawaii. What he was doing, those skills are transferable game to game, playing different teams. That was very, very impressive, and somebody that I got to keep my eye on for sure. And if you don't have anything on those last 2 games, then we'll go on into Saturday.
Yeah, let's do it. I don't really have anything to add there. I think, I was kind of on the same side of that bet with you with Hawaii. It's kind of unfortunate to see them fall to Stanford, but I mean, players make plays. Sometimes it happens.
Yeah, and Stanford looked better than anybody would have imagined, to be honest with you. I think everybody was surprised. Their offense looked pretty serviceable. They got a true freshman quarterback. Could have never seen him coming in and playing as well as he did. So kudos to the trees out there. And Stanford, one of the newest additions to the ACC. I guess you've heard about that as well.
Right.
And maybe we'll talk about that at the end of the show for just a minute. And some of those details.
We got football to talk about. No more conference realignment.
Amen.
We thought.
I do feel like whenever this stuff gets brought up during football, it's almost like disrespectful. It's like respect the season. Like don't be dropping big college football news when it's regular season, man. Like I
saw Josh Pate tweeted out, do you think that they realize that there's a season going on?
No, they don't. They don't even care. It's so wild. Well, we'll kind of go in order here as I've got them on my page, and that's pretty much by ranking. So we'll start with the number 1 ranked back-to-back national champion Georgia Bulldogs. They beat University of Tennessee Martin 48-7. This was Carson Beck's debut. Georgia's new offensive coordinator, Mike Bobo. I guess he's kind of old and new in the sense that he's been at Georgia before. But in this stint, this was his offensive coordinator debut, and it was a little bit underwhelming. Georgia fans are a little bit restless about what they saw, and I am here to say that I was a little restless with what I saw at times, but nothing is as good as it seems, and nothing is as bad as it seems in week 1. 2 years ago, we saw Georgia come out with Stetson Bennett, with JT Daniels, and play Clemson and score 13 points in the opener, and everybody was like, well, I don't know. Georgia's doesn't, the same old Georgia doesn't have the offense. And then they go on to win a national championship. So, what I say right here doesn't mean that Georgia can't go attain all the goals that they want to attain. But I am going to pick things apart here. The offensive line, that was a very lackluster performance in specifically the first quarter and a half of the football game. They were getting absolutely no push, could not run the ball, specifically couldn't run the ball up the middle. Now, Georgia fans were upset with Mike Bobo because it seemed like Georgia offense was banging their head against the wall, running up the middle. But I'm sure if you're Mike Bobo, you're sitting up there thinking, well, yeah, but this is Tennessee Martin. We should be able to run through them, even if they are stacking the box, or But it just didn't seem like we were taking what the defense was getting at the first part of the game. We were kind of just doing what we wanted to do and not basing it off of our opponent. And I think that was some of the complaining that was done, years ago when Mike Bobo was here, and while he had great numbers last time he was at Georgia, averaging 40-something odds points a game, it frustrated some people. So I saw some receivers not helping out Carson Beck as much as I would have liked. I saw Carson Beck throwing behind a couple players. He did not make any mistakes that would jeopardize the game for Georgia. But then again, I didn't see any plays that he made that won the game for Georgia necessarily either. So all in all, I would give Georgia, if I was to give them a letter grade from A to F, I would give Georgia like a C. I thought it was a pretty average performance. Now, defensively, I thought they played really well. It was definitely a well played defensive game. Tennessee Martin scores 7 on like the third and fourth string defense. So all in all, I was pretty happy with what I saw from the defense. Still got some questions about the offense, but eager to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, offensive line, the rushing attack was just not there. I thought that we talked about this before the show. I thought that their pass pro looked really good. Carson Beck did overthrow Arian Smith one time, which I don't even know how you do that. Typically, you see him get underthrown as fast as he is, but I think that he was fighting some jitters. Hopefully he kind of works through that. I'm sure he will. And I will say I'm kind of a Mike Bobo believer, and I didn't really take anything away from this game as far as his play calling goes. I just saw him trying to establish the run up the middle against UT Martin, and like you said, he should be able to do that at Georgia with, what the preseason expectations are of being the number 1 or number 2 offensive line in the country. You should be able to run block a lot better, and they'll make some adjustments, and but ultimately, I mean, Dominic Lovett had a couple of tough drops, contested throws where, the one in the end zone that he had that comes to mind. I'd like to see him kind of that away from there and kind of, hold it up. He kind of pulled it in close to his chest when he already had a height advantage on the defender. So I'd like to see him just kind of hold that ball up over his head and keep it away from the defender. If he does that, he makes the catch and doesn't drop it. Yep. I think he had, was it 2 or 3 drops? A couple of big ones, but so I think that he'll do better, as the season goes on. This may be like his worst game, honestly, and drops. Sometimes, you just get a little bug with it, but they were all contested catches, and where the defender kind of made a play, put their head on the ball or punched it out, and he kind of had some tough ones, but you can look at that and say, well, why isn't he creating separation, so maybe he does a little bit better job of that as time goes on. On a positive, though, I thought that, we did see Brock Bowers used in some unique ways that we didn't see even with Todd Monken. You know, Bobo had him lined up in the backfield at one point, you know, and had Brock Delp or Oscar Delp in front of him lined up as a fullback almost, you know, and I'm thinking, gosh, here we go, you know. Brock Bowers for Heisman, you know, he's lining up at running back. He's going to get some carries out of the backfield, you know, and but you saw that in kind of a pistol formation, and they ended up throwing it to him in the flats, you know, and so we're seeing him used in some unique ways. I thought it was a big game for him, honestly. You know, had close to 100 yards receiving. Let's see, so 77 yards receiving. Had some rushing yards as well and a touchdown rushing. So I thought that he looked great. Had some good highlights. You know, they're it seems like they're trying to feature him even more than in the past, and I think that they're really going to try to make a push for him and as a Heisman candidate. So that's exciting to see for Georgia and for college football in general, because who doesn't want to see more Brock Bowers, you know? But yeah, and then on the defensive side of the ball, this secondary is exactly as advertised. It was really fun watching them come up and make some stops and stop the run a lot, and you know, make some plays on in pass protection and all that, and you know, punch some balls out. And I do expect to see more turnovers and takeaways as the season goes on. But you know, I thought that the secondary looks to be a strength of this defense, which is what we all thought. And they're still battling some injuries, so they'll get healthier. But overall, this looked like the best defense in the country after week one. And, you know, it's scary to think, but I think that they're going to get a lot better as the season goes on. But yeah, that's all I have really on Georgia. Where did you want to take it next, or do you have anything else to add to that?
Well, I just got a couple little things. So I don't think Georgia has anything to worry about right this second at the running back position. I thought Kendall Milton actually looked pretty good, despite the runs where we were trying to run up the middle and we were not getting to push at all. Everything that we ran to the edge was successful, and I was pretty happy with that. Cash Jones has got a lot of learning to do. But I will say this: I think he is our best receiving running back.
Yeah.
And so I think there's going to be a good chance to use his hands out of the backfield, and I think it's going to be really useful. And a guy named C.J. Smith really stepped up at wide receiver. I saw some big catches from him. One of them was a 47-yard reception and run. Ra Thomas got in and got a 56-yard reception. So I felt like as the game on, the wide receivers got more comfortable, but I was surprised to not see Lad McConkey.
Yeah.
That was a surprise to me. I didn't know that he would be sitting out, and I think it hurt us a little bit at the start of the game. I think we were kind of looking for somebody to give us a spark, and Brock Bowers kind of you know, he finally provided that. I mean, gosh, when that guy comes in, he is so freaking hard to tackle. I mean, he's so hard to tackle. It's unbelievable. But quarterback and wide receivers got to get on the same page a little bit better. And I saw where Carson Beck left a few wide receivers out to dry, left them out, you know, hanging to dry out in front of a defender and getting smoked. Brock Bowers got smoked like that one good time and fumbled. And you just don't see that a whole lot. He's got to get hit pretty hard to fumble like that. But lots of names popped up on the defense that did lots of things, and Malachi Starks is at the top of that list. Had 8 tackles, 3 solo. Malachi Starks is looking like an animal.
Yes.
Very, very, very excited to see him develop as the year goes on. And it's just hard to believe that he's a sophomore the way that he's playing right now. All right, moving on. Michigan beats East Carolina 30-3. Didn't watch a ton of this game. I'm going to go back and watch it and kind of look at it more. I know J.J. McCarthy played well. I know Corum played well. Jim Harbaugh was suspended and not on the sideline. J.J. McCarthy came out in a free Harbaugh shirt for warm-ups. And it was not, I don't think, a lot to glean from that game. Ohio State
highlights on that. Sorry to interrupt you there, but it seemed like the highlights on that was more about them coming out in that line formation, holding up number 4, and it was more about Jim Harbaugh being absent than it was the actual game, and which was interesting. I get it, and it looked like Michigan really had that one handled. Apparently, they look really good on defense, which is to be expected. But anyways, that's all I really had on that one.
We'll move on to the Ohio State and Indiana. So Ohio State beats Indiana 23-3. This game, I'm sure for a lot of Ohio State fans, was pretty frustrating to watch. I talked about Georgia struggling on offense, struggling to get it going. Not like Ohio State did. They had a pretty hard time getting the ball moving there for a little while. Ended up with 237 yards passing, 143 rushing. Not for Ohio State standards, that was a bad offensive game. They ran the ball for about 4.6 a carry. I wasn't very impressed with the offense, but it's week 1. Let's give it a chance. Kyle McCord was 20 of 33, 239 yards, averaged 7.2, and threw 1 interception. Marvin Harrison Jr. only had 2 catches for 18 yards in this game, and I gotta believe that they're gonna get him going. And if you had him going and he got his regular 100 yards or 150 yards, you're probably looking at this a little bit differently. But there was no touchdowns caught by any wide receiver at all, and that's concerning. Mayan Williams ran in a couple of touchdowns. I didn't like it. I didn't like what I saw, but I'm not going to overreact to it because I think there's plenty of time for the Ohio State offense to get going. But with all that being said, defensively, they played really well. They only allowed 8 first downs. They allowed 4 of 15 on third down. Only gave up a total of 153 yards. And that was the lowest amount of yards allowed by an Ohio State team in, I think, since 2014. And I believe, that's the year they won the national championship. So you got to take some bad with the good, I guess, on this. And it was a little bit of opposite of what we thought it would be. Honestly, it was the defense showing out and the offense needing some help. Ohio State, really, the story of the game was 2 of 12 on third down, and if you're 2 of 12 on third down, I mean that's just not going to get it. That's going to get you. If that was factored out throughout the year, you'd be about 130th in the country on third down at that percentage. So. Definitely got some work to do, and but didn't take a loss, and that's what's important. I think in week 1 is get through it and try to get out as healthy as possible, and they did that. Everything that Ohio State wants to do is still in front of them, but obviously something's not clicking on the offense, and they're going to have to work on that. You got anything on this one?
Yeah, I mean, on top of everything you just said, I thought that they played really well on defense. Just going by the numbers here, but it's week 1, right? We expected the quarterback competition to continue, through week 1 in some ways. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more out of Devin Brown. He did come in, I think, for a series when they just kind of pulled the cord and he didn't do well. So they put him back in, but But this is a team that's probably going to rely on their defense, while they get things figured out on offense and kind of get that chemistry going. And Ohio State, I mean, the past few years, really since Justin Fields was there, they've been sort of a later, back half of the season surging team. So, they do tend to get better, as the season goes on. But, if this is a race, I would say, at this point after week one, Michigan's probably leading the Big Ten, and Penn State probably right behind them, and then Ohio State somewhere in the middle of the pack. With just with where they're at right now, I would say. But they definitely players to make that up at some point. Excuse me, 1 second. Let's add over here.
Yeah, Devin Brown didn't look too hot. So I definitely think that they're going to end up sticking with McCord. And it wasn't all bad with McCord, that's for sure. It's just the third down. You've got to be able to convert on third down and get a play for your team whenever you need it, whenever the team needs it. So I definitely think that there was some good things to take away. We've been begging Ohio State to play some defense, and we got what we were asking for on that for sure. Let's keep it moving. So the Alabama Crimson Tide defeat the Middle Tennessee State University 56-7. Alabama hits a perfect 14 points in each quarter. Seemed like a very consistent offense, honestly. Jalen Milroe, I thought played really good. Let's see. Let's pull up his numbers. 13 of 18, 194 yards, 10.8 per attempt, 3 touchdowns, and he had a really high QBR. And one thing in the quarterback room that I thought was interesting was that Tyler Buckner was the one who really got like the second team reps. He was 3 of 5 for 27 yards, and Ty Simpson got 1 attempt completed for 5 yards. So you kind of see what the pecking order is, and I think that's kind of surprising to see Tyler Buckner come and get, the second most attempts there. I thought that was pretty interesting. But all in all, I think this is exactly what we're going to be able to expect from Alabama this year. It's exactly what we had talked about. It's a team that's going to be focused on physical run game. Jalen Milroe had 7 carries for 48 yards. They're going to run with the quarterback and those running backs that they got, Jace McClellan, Roydell Williams, Justice Haynes. Those are going to be your 1, 2, and 3 right there. And they ran for 205 yards total and 5.1s per carry. So this is exactly what I thought we were going to get out of the Alabama team. Isaiah Bond had a good game. I think that's kind of emerging as the wide receiver 1 for the Tide. Isaiah Bond is a bit of a breath of fresh air this year. It seems like he had a 47-yard catch in the game. Jermaine Burton had a decent little game. I've never heard of Amari Niblack. Yeah, I had never heard of him. Kobe Prentice had a decent little game. They spread the ball around pretty good. So all in all, I think if you're an Alabama fan, I think you're pretty happy, and you're definitely happy with Caleb Downs on defense. That he was fun to watch, and Deontay Lawson had a really good game on defense as well. I was overall pretty impressed. Alabama had 3 sacks. Had an interception. All in all, man, I felt pretty good about it. What was your takeaways from the Alabama Crimson Tide?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that their offensive line played really well. They had sort of the best showing out of the SEC, I thought. And they just did a better job than Georgia, if you were to compare the two, of playing within the system, and doing what they wanted to on offense. And I thought that their defense played pretty well as well. They were sort of that bend, don't break sort of defense that we're used to seeing. They, had some turnovers, some takeaways. But yeah, I mean, overall they really just played as well as I thought that they would. And we just got to wait to see them against some of these SEC teams to know really what they are, and of course Texas next week. But at this point, and I know we haven't gotten to Texas yet, but at this point, I mean, they played better than Texas, so I think it'd be hard to pick them to lose to Texas, which I did, before the season started. But after week one, I mean, it definitely seems like Texas has the edge. I mean, excuse me, Alabama has the edge in that game.
Yeah. I definitely feel the same way. I was pretty confident in what I saw in Alabama. They were really, really good on third down too. That was a big point of emphasis in the game. They were 10 of 13 on third down. All in all, Jalen Milroe looked good. The Crimson Tide looked good. I had lost my mic there for just a second.
Okay, I was wondering.
Yeah. But anyway, we'll keep it moving. Alabama looks good, 56-7. They beat Middle Tennessee. So USC and Nevada. USC beats Nevada 66-14. Didn't watch really any of this. Nevada is really, really bad. USC is really, really good on offense. And just for Heisman purposes and things, we'll go check out the box score on this one. And give you Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams was 18 of 24, 319 yards and 5 TDs, 93.7 QBR. Miller Moss got in and was 7 of 10 for 134 yards and a touchdown. Miller Moss is looking real good. Marshawn Lloyd got 7 carries today, or yesterday, I should say. So kind of a flip-flop on that. Last week we saw Austin Jones get the majority of the carries at running back, and now we see Marshawn Lloyd come in and average 10.9 yards per carry, 7 carries for 76 yards. Pretty good game. Pretty good game for Marshawn Lloyd. And a whole bunch of receivers caught passes. So it was more of the same from the offense. And nothing super surprising there. Let's keep it moving if you don't have anything on that one.
No.
All right, Penn State and West Virginia. This game ended pretty late last night, and Penn State ends up pulling out the victory 38-15. Game was pretty daggum close for a little bit there. What could you take away from the Penn State and West Virginia game?
I thought, they gave up some points late in the fourth quarter. Otherwise, I thought they had a really good defensive outing. We're putting pressure on the quarterback pretty well. And I thought that Drew Aller had an outstanding showing. I thought he looked really poised and ended up with 325 yards, 3 touchdowns. This is a pretty bad West Virginia team. I don't want to take too much away from this, but yeah, I thought that Penn State looked good. They covered. It was a good outing for them, and I'm excited to see that because they should definitely get better as the season goes on. This is a team that I expect to grow. As the season goes on, particularly, I expect Drew Aller to grow within this system and as he gets more reps. But I'm really excited. I thought that they're kind of where they need to be right now, and they still are very much a contender for me in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I didn't walk away with anything necessarily negative about Penn State, but Drew Aller was 21 of 29, 325 yards and 3 TDs. I'd say that's one hell of a debut for him. Penn State was able to run the ball pretty well, 146 yards. Singleton had 13 carries, 70 yards. which averaged 5.4 a carry. They averaged 4.2 yards a carry for the game. I thought that was a little bit underwhelming. Probably going to want to be able to get those rushing numbers a bit. Kind of surprised they threw the ball 30 times, but I'm they threw the ball 30 times and ran the ball 35 times, so that's pretty balanced there. Keandre Lambert-Smith is a really good wide receiver. I did gather that. Definitely the wide receiver one for Penn State, and they spread the ball around pretty good. Had about 8 guys or so with receptions. Curtis Jacobs on defense is really good. He had 10 total tackles for Penn State. They had 3 sacks, so 6 tackles for loss. So there was a lot of good things to show there from Penn State, and I think Penn State's trying to tell us that they're a pretty good team, and I think we probably should believe them. I think they are a pretty good team, and as you said, I think that more than likely they're probably second best in that Big Ten right now, early on in the season. Boise State and Washington. Washington ends up winning this game 56-19. I'm big on Washington this year. I'm pretty high on them. Michael Penix specifically had a really nice game, and
I'd say.
Yeah.
29 touchdowns.
Yeah, 29 of 40, 450 yards, 5 TDs. Really, really nice day, and he pretty much played the whole game and just tore them up. Washington, Will Nixon, Jalen McMillan, Dylan Johnson. Those were your guys that were running the ball for Washington. Cam Smith went out with that injury. A little bit underwhelming there. I do feel a little better after seeing those mix of guys. I feel like you got some guys that are hungry and some guys that are going to be able to grow as the year goes on at running back. These receivers are sick, though, man. I mean, they wow. I mean, Odunze, Polk, McMillan, Westover, Bernard. I mean, there are some really, really good wide receivers. Is that mine?
I think so. It's probably the ESPN ads. They keep getting me too.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking over stats and everything, and it's over here playing stuff for me when I'm not asking it to. But all in all, nothing changed as far as my my thoughts on Washington. A lot of the same things that we talked about in the preseason came to fruition in this game. I would like to see them continue to work on the secondary. They gave up 264 yards passing, and a couple of receivers got them pretty good in that game. But overall, I felt good about Washington's performance. How about you?
Yeah, I was worried at first. They started out, got outscored 6-0 in the first quarter. Boise State had a lot of momentum. I thought, man, this might be a nail biter. This might be one of those upset games, but they really pulled it together in the second quarter. Outscored Boise State 28-6, and it really just they just ran away with it at that point, and looked to be a pretty complete team on offense and defense. I expect them to continue with that and continue to hold on it. I thought Penix overthrew a couple of guys and maybe missed a couple of balls, but early at least. But he was really dialed in towards the end, and obviously had an outstanding game from a stat line perspective. And this doesn't move the needle one way or another for me with Washington. I think they're a really good team and a competitor in the Pac-12.
Yeah, for sure. I think so too. All right, let's keep it moving. The Texas Longhorns. This one had a lot of people talking. Game was pretty a little too close for comfort there for a while. I want to say it was 13-3 at halftime or something like that. 16-3. It just the offense was not looking very good for Texas early on. Quinn Ewers seemed to be a bit off, and then they put it all together and took care of Rice and JT Daniels. Unfortunately, I saw and I'm not changing my pick or anything from Texas, but I just saw more of that same inconsistency that we saw last year, where it was like, where is the offense? This is a Steve Sarkisian coach team. Where are they at? But this is not the only team I said that about this week. So, yet again, I'm not going to overreact. But my goodness, it took a while to get it going, and I just was a little bit disappointed, I guess, in the offense at first, and I think everybody was expecting a little more out of AD Mitchell. He had 3 catches for 26 yards. Xavier Worthy had 7 catches for 90 yards. You don't have any receivers go over 100, and you only have 1 go over 50 yards. So the ball was spread around a little bit, but just seemed kind of underwhelming from those wide receivers whenever you're going against Rice. And it seems like they're probably missing Bijan Robinson a pretty good bit too, with only 158 yards rushing for the game. While C.J. Baxter did average 7.6 yards per carry, like we had talked about C.J. Baxter and being a player to watch. He only got 5 touches, but I was just a little less than impressed with the offense. Defensively, obviously, only gave up 10 points, and felt pretty good about that. Ethan Burke had 1.5 sacks. You got 5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. Decent game considering who you're playing. What were your thoughts on Texas? I was a little bit disappointed in the offense.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they've got to work through some stuff. I wonder how much Texas is looking ahead to Alabama and vice versa. I wonder how much Alabama, is looking ahead to Texas and their game. And is this the offense we're really going to see?
That's exactly what we said when we watched it. They're looking ahead.
Yeah, so maybe they're kind of keeping C.J. Baxter, under wraps in some way. Maybe they're not, exposing the entire route tree for or their entire playbook, for Alabama, because they will use that. But I thought defensively they were outstanding, particularly up front. On the defensive line, which sets up well if Alabama is going to play this run heavy offense that we think that they will. It really matches up well because I tell you what, Byron Young up front is a no doubt first rounder in my opinion. He's a disruptive player, and they've got some guys on the edge that can do some good things. And I think matchup wise, it does play pretty well for Alabama if they're able to for Texas against Alabama if they're able to get to Jalen Milroe. But not to make this too much about that preview. We'll get to that later on this week. But I think overall for this game, it was fair. On offense and great on defense. They really played better in the third quarter and in the second half in general. Scored 21 in the third quarter. But I just don't know how much of the offense we really saw, like you agreed with there. But I'm excited to see what they do next week, and I'll just kind of leave Texas at that for now.
Yeah, I think everybody is really looking forward to that matchup next week, and I guess we're all just kind of wondering what Texas is going to look like, whenever they go to Tuscaloosa next week. That's going to be really exciting to watch. I can't wait. Tennessee and Virginia. Tennessee ends up beating Virginia 49-13. Virginia is just one of the worst football teams that I've seen in a little while. They're about like Colorado last year. It's like really bad. Tennessee while they did put up 49 points, I saw some things from Joe Milton that I didn't like. And it was more of the same things that I've talked about over the last few years that seem to be rearing their head a little bit already. Throwing the ball 100 miles an hour. Second layer, throwing into the second layer of the defense, overthrowing the crap out of the ball. Where not where defenders could get it at least, but where the offense couldn't get it either. So I saw some things that I think probably can be expected week one, but not something that you are wanting to see out of a quarterback that's been in this system for a couple of years now. I think the wide receivers were not quite as good as what we saw last year. It was definitely a good offense. I'm not saying it was bad, but this was not the same offense that we saw beat Alabama last year. It doesn't look that good to me.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a ton we can take away from this game because they played such a horrible, horrible team. But they were pretty consistent throughout the game. The first quarter was the slowest. They only scored 7 in the first, and then 14 in the second, third, and fourth to total out the 49. One thing that you can glean from it, I think the defense looked pretty good. They held Virginia to 5 of 18 on third down. You did give up 12 first downs, so they moved the chains a decent amount, but only 201 total yards for Virginia. So I feel like that's an improvement for Tennessee. I feel like this team last year probably gives up more than that, and probably gives up more than 13 points even to a bad Virginia team. Were you able to take a look at this one, and what did you think about the balls?
I did. I flipped back and forth to it, but like you said, Joe Milton, if he's going to have a Heisman run, he's got to do better than what he did passing wise and overthrowing and underthrowing receivers. Just not very accurate. We all know he can throw the ball 90 yards, but you can throw the ball for 500 yards in a game, but if you're not hitting receivers, you're still only going to end up with 201 yards and 2 touchdowns. So got to be more accurate. And they did spread the ball around pretty well, which we've come to expect in Heupel's offense. But I expect them to play a lot better. I thought the offensive line played pretty well, considering they lost. I think it was 3 offensive linemen this offseason. So I thought that they held up. That was one area I was circling and trying to figure out, if they were going to have some drop off there. But I thought that they did pretty well, and I thought that they improved on the defense, like you mentioned. But like most teams, they're working through some stuff, and I do expect this offense to get a little bit better, but probably not quite what we expected in week one from Tennessee.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Considering what we saw from some of these other teams in week one, especially the top tier teams, I think Tennessee was just as good as anybody on week one. Honestly, I mean, as far as their performance goes. So I don't think there's too much to worry about at this point with Tennessee. I think we need to see a little bit more, and I'm going to say the same for a lot of these teams. Let's keep it moving. Notre Dame beats Tennessee State 56-3. We're not going to really go over that a whole lot. That was a spanking. Oregon beats Portland State 81-7. Woo! My goodness, that was the most points that Oregon has scored in a long time. 22 in the first and 28 in the second. Just absolutely annihilated them. Bo Nix was 23 of 27, 287 yards and 3 TDs. I would say this puts him in the early Heisman watch list, I would say. And very, very convincing win. Oregon had 729 yards in this game.
Right.
I mean, 37 first downs. 37. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, this is Portland State they're playing here, so let's don't get too carried away. But my goodness gracious, they looked as good as could be expected. You can't ask for more out of it. You get scheduled at Portland State. What can you do to look good? You beat them 81-7. That's what you can do. And hats off to Oregon for not playing with their food, like a lot of these other big teams did. Kansas State, Southeast Missouri. Kansas wins 45-0. Will Howard looks really good. Water wet, fire hot. Kansas State's got a good offensive line. They absolutely mowed these guys over and just did whatever the heck they wanted. Let's don't spend too much time on that. Let's get to what everybody's talking about in the country. Deion Sanders, the Colorado Buffaloes, took down the TCU Horned Frogs, the team that went to the national championship last year, in their first game. TCU was a 20.5-point favorite over the Buffaloes, and Colorado shocked the world in the Sanders family, let's just say, their debut. Wow, super impressive. There's a long line of people in line to eat some crow, and I am one of them. I did not think this would happen. I didn't think there was any chance in hell that they'd even be competing in this game. I thought the spread was 20.5. I thought TCU to win by 28. I really did. I firmly thought that, and that was just not the case, man. It started off a little slow. One thing I will say about Colorado, they got pretty bad special teams. That was pretty rough looking. But my goodness, man, Shadur Sanders throws for 510 yards in this game. Sets a Colorado school record in his first game. Colorado did not run the ball very well, didn't stop the run very well either. So some things to glean from this game. I think Colorado, the offensive line played way better than expected. Way better than expected. I thought this offensive line was going to suck, and they were moving people out of the way. I mean, and blocking people on pass block, man. So they pull out the victory, 45-42 over the 17th ranked TCU Horned Frogs. What was your reaction?
Man, this was always a stay away game for me. I didn't really have a good read, obviously, of Colorado with all of the transfers, and you mentioned at the top of the show, how much of an impact this has made in week one, on the entire league, all the transfers that have come through, but none more than Colorado and the impact that they've been able to make in week one. And like you said, shock the world. One thing that I really took away from this was they've got a really good freshman running back in Dylan Edwards, who ended up with 4 touchdowns on the day, led the team in receiving yards with 135 and 3 touchdowns, and then also 24 yards on the ground on 6 carries with a touchdown. Just played really well, for all the credit that Shadur Sanders is going to get, and he should, and for all the credit that Travis Hunter is going to get, and he should. Dylan Edwards is really the MVP, in my opinion, of this game, and the impact that he made as a true freshman was really impressive. They've got to find more ways to get him the ball, I think. Travis Hunter, as well as he played, he left an interception and a touchdown on the table, balls that just went through his hands, but that's I'm not taking him out of Heisman considerations, but those are plays that Heisman winners make, and so he's got to make those plays moving forward. I was really impressed with him and thought that he's definitely deserving of all the credit that he's being given, and really excited to watch him play moving forward. But yeah, like you said, on defense, I just thought that they played really well, and offensively too. This was just a complete game, which is what you had to do to beat TCU. I think TCU is going to go on to win the majority of their games, but Colorado might be might be saying that too, you know. And I'm just curious where. So at this point now, I think everybody's kind of recalibrating their Colorado expectations. So where do you think Colorado can go with this, and what do you think that they're going to do for the remainder of the season based on week 1?
Well, neither one of us had it in our best bets that TCU was going to cover this game, and I'm proud of us because we didn't dig our heels in the ground on this Colorado thing, and I'm gonna reverse face on this a little bit. It looks to me like Colorado can probably go bowling.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think the goal needs to be. It needs to be 6 wins. If you'd have asked me this 72 hours ago, I would have said the goal would be to win more than 1 game. That's what I would have said. He has these guys believing that everybody doubted him, and it gave them the fuel that they needed to get motivated. And this team was super motivated. They had a will to win, like I haven't seen Colorado have. So I think they can ride this wave probably to a bowl game. You know, I don't foresee them. I'm going to try to pull up their schedule here. I got it right here. So you've got Nebraska. Colorado can definitely beat Nebraska. Colorado State, they will beat Colorado State. And then you've got at Oregon. I don't think there's any way they can win that game. Then you got USC. I don't believe they can win that game. But with that being said, USC does not have a better defense than TCU, in my opinion. I think it's probably about the same overall. Better frontline players. I think TCU probably has more depth. So with that being said, USC could be a good game. It actually could be a good game, and it's at Colorado. You got at Arizona State, Stanford, UCLA, Oregon State, Arizona, Washington State, and then at Utah. So I'm seeing probably 3 for sure losses. The rest of them, man, if they play like they did yesterday, man, they could win some of these other games. I mean, is it possible for them to go 8-4? Is it?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know.
It is. That would be huge for that program.
That would be amazing, dude. That would be the most amazing turnaround I've ever seen in college football. Ever.
I mean, at this point, you can already call it a successful season. You know,
Yeah.
They beat a top 25 team. They just look really good
Yeah.
overall. I do think that Nebraska is going to be a game next week. I think that's going to be a really fun one.
Hey, if Colorado wins games, it's going to be close, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree.
They're not going to kill anybody, I don't think, on this schedule.
No,
maybe Colorado State. That's it.
Yeah, that's the only one. That's the only one that I'm looking at. It's actually a pretty good, non-con schedule. Pretty tough schedule overall by Colorado's standards. So, I think that Arizona State looked really bad this week, so that may be one that you just say, yeah, that's a for sure win.
Yeah.
And probably Washington State as well. But like you said, there's a lot of games where I'm just looking at on and they'll probably sneak up and get a Utah and Oregon State, UCLA, USC, or Oregon. I think that they could easily win 2 of those games of those 5. But it's just really exciting, and good for Deion and the Buffaloes out there. And I can't wait to watch this unfold. It's everybody will be glued to every game that Colorado plays now, and anybody can get got by Colorado at this point if TCU did. And I'm anxious to see what TCU does moving forward. Not to make it all about Colorado, but that's the story here. It's not so much about what TCU didn't do as much as it is what Colorado was able to accomplish in week 1 in surprising fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, we're going to be talking a lot about Colorado, um, and I think a lot of people are going to be talking about Colorado this year a lot. This is a very exciting story, and it's something that has really never happened in college football before. A celebrity basically taking over a college football team and winning. Um, and this is America, and everybody loves a winner. And if they can go out there and put winning football on the field, Colorado will be all the craze, and people will want to go play for Deion Sanders and the Buffs. Zero doubt in my mind about that. So let's go on to the Wisconsin and Buffalo. I'm just going to go over something real quick on this. Everybody's curious about what Luke Fickell, Wisconsin looks like. It's 314 yards rushing. That's what it looks like. They ran the ball for 7.9 yards a carry on 40 attempts. So going to be a a run heavy team. Didn't play super well on third down. Obviously, there's going to be some rebuilding that needs to be done at Wisconsin. Gave up 316 total yards, pretty decent defensive effort. Not much you can take away from Buffalo there, but nonetheless, Wisconsin gets the win 38-17 over Buffalo, and Luke Fickell gets his first win as a Wisconsin head coach, and it is the beginning of a new era there. And Wisconsin has got that side of the division that they're in the Big Ten wide open. So if they can continue their winning ways, there's no telling where they could end up, man. No telling where they could end up on that side of the division. Maybe find themselves in Indianapolis at the end of the year if they can figure some things out. Oklahoma, number 20, Oklahoma beats Arkansas State 73 million to nothing. 73-0, they beat them. Yeah, I mean, what do we say? Oklahoma looked amazing. 642 total yards, only gave up 208. Honestly, this looks like this Oklahoma team looked like one that we haven't really seen. It's like a new version of Oklahoma, like a 2.0 with some defense. Now, Arkansas State had a lot of penalties in this game, and it really helped them out. They had 14 penalties. Really, really undisciplined game by Arkansas State. But Oklahoma held them to 2 of 12 on third down. That's really the story of the game. Oklahoma was 11 of 14 on third down. Really, really good at moving the chains. Dylan Gabriel was 30 of 33. I guess this was as a team. They were 30 of 33. Let me look up Gabriel. So Gabriel, man, all right. I had not pulled this up yet until just now, but this just proves everything we've been saying about Jackson Arnold. All right, Dylan. Oh, this thing is making noise. I hate these ads. So Dylan Gabriel for the game was 19 of 22, 308 yards. Really good. 97.1 QBR. That's about the highest we've seen of anybody that we've talked about today. Jackson Arnold was 11 of 11 for 114 yards and a touchdown and 95.6 QBR. Holy cow, man. I mean, and they didn't even rely on their best wide receiver. Jaleel Farouk only had one catch for 10 yards. It was Javonte Barnes that was tearing them up. What'd you think about Oklahoma, man? Because this is about the best we've seen them look, in 2-3 years.
Yeah, it's, this is kind of what I expected. And look, I've never even heard of Arkansas State. Outside of Butch Jones coaching there, I really wouldn't know much about them. But
trash can Butch,
old trash can. Gosh, he looked like he was going through it on the sideline. I mean, he was all but in tears. It was pretty funny to see. But yeah, so Oklahoma, I mean, they just look really good. What can you say? Both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Obviously, they put up 73 points. Didn't give up a single point. Didn't give up much on defense at all. This is kind of the defense that I expect to see from Venables. Whereas last season, if they played this same game, I guarantee you Arkansas State scored 24 points.
Yeah.
So I think that they played much better. This is kind of what I expected from Oklahoma. I wouldn't say to this fashion necessarily, but I did expect them to play better defense and a similar style of offense. But they spread the ball around a lot on offense, and got a lot of people in to make some plays, and let's just kind of keep an eye on them and see how they move up the rankings. But they definitely look better than Texas after week 1. So let's see if they can continue that and kind of defy everybody's thoughts of them preseason and win the Big 12. Nobody's expected them to do that. So, but right now they're kind of the front runner in the Big 12 in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move it on over to one of the, or I guess probably the biggest game of the Saturday slate, North Carolina and South Carolina. North Carolina ends up winning this game 31-17. Drake May was 24-32, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Spencer Rattler was 30 of 39, 353 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions in the game there. And I just got to say this. I got to say this about Spencer Rattler. That guy put this team on his back, and he gave it everything he had. I mean, you got to give it to him. He left his heart and his soul out there. And part of it was this North Carolina defense trying to take his soul. They had 9 sacks. How do you throw for those kind of yards and get sacked 9 times? He threw for 353 yards. And every time he got sacked, all he did was throw his hand up, get picked up by one of his offensive linemen, and he wasn't worried about it no more. He was getting the play. He was running the next play. Didn't flinch. Spencer Rattler, one day he's going to be really happy that he went to South Carolina, because I think that it has changed him into a much better character and leader on the football field. He was a true leader yesterday, and I was actually pretty happy for him, even though he got sacked 9 times and they lost the game. I just thought that he played very well and did not get any help from his team. That offensive line for South Carolina, I mean, holy damn. What in the world was that? North Carolina ain't that good on the line of scrimmage on defense. I'm always one to say nothing is as good as it seems or as bad as it seems on week 1, but damn, it looked bad. Woo! It was bad. I mean, just horrible. They were missing the left tackle like crazy. The guy that got hurt for South Carolina, they were missing him. Ran the ball for negative 2 yards for the game, Mason. Negative 2 yards.
It looked like they said, okay, well, our left tackle isn't going to play this game, so we're just not going to have a left tackle. Like that's what it looked like. I mean, I don't know who filled in for him, but my gosh, it seemed like he just wasn't even there. That was really, really bad. I knew and it seems like everything that we thought that South Carolina was going to be kind of reared its ugly head on the offensive line, but we also had heard whispers that Spencer Rattler had really grown up a lot and played with a lot more maturity, and we saw that too. They really missed Juice Wells, at receiver as well. But I thought that Leggett had a really good game. I thought he played well.
Oh man, he played good. Holy crap!
Yeah. So he was doing it all, returning and catching balls as well. So there are some good things or some things to like from South Carolina. But gosh, this is going to be a really tough season for the Gamecocks, and a really tough season, unfortunately, for Spencer Rattler, who is playing really, really good football and just doesn't really have the weapons around him to have it amount to anything at the end of the day. But the NFL scouts are still going to see that, and I think that he's playing himself into a day two type of quarterback, in the NFL draft coming into the season. But
yeah,
it's going to be a long season for them if they play like that. And but outside of South Carolina, moving to North Carolina, I thought Drake May had a great game. He made some throws on the run that looked really nice. He did about what we would expect to see him do. He is missing some receivers, and that kind of showed. But ultimately, I thought he played really well, and I thought that the defense played well. Even if you take away the sacks, I was really impressed with the defense. I did think that they would take a step forward from last season because they played really, really bad last season. They were awful. They were like the worst in the ACC just about. So it's tough not to improve from that. But I thought that they were really good defensively, even if you take the sacks out and adjust for a really bad offensive line. I thought that was very pleasant to see. I figured that they would get better under Gene Chiswick's second year, just in general. But that was you've got to be pretty happy if you're a Tar Heels fan with what you saw on defense, and it's got to give you some hope that they're kind of that really that third team in the ACC now that could potentially win it all. After that, and it's kind of shaping up to be a really interesting ACC, similar to the Pac-12, where you've got probably 4 teams that are legitimate contenders for the championship in that conference. And it makes me kind of wonder if I might have been right by not putting anybody in the ACC in the playoffs, because they may do what we see some conferences do and cannibalize each other. They could definitely sneak up and get Clemson or Florida State if they play like they did last night. I was pretty impressed with them.
Yeah. Drake May, 24-32, 269 yards, 2 TDs and 2 interceptions, as I said. 168 yards rushing that North Carolina had, 269 yards receiving. I honestly, the offense didn't look as good as I thought it would, to be honest. The defense just looked so damn good. So I think there's room for North Carolina to improve on offense a little bit. And if the defense resembles what it did last night, then they're not going to have any problems getting to where they want to go in the ACC. As far as I'm concerned, Florida State is going to have to show it to us, and that's going to happen tonight. And can't wait to see that. But we're going to keep it moving as soon as I can get back to my little list here. Ole Miss beat the bejesus out of a thing called Mercer, 73-7. So, yeah. Texas A&M beat New Mexico 52-10. We won't worry about that one. Tulane beat South Alabama 37-17. Iowa beat Utah State 24-14. Cade McNamara did play.
That was the one point I had for that game. Is he played and threw 2 touchdowns. I guess Iowa does have some sort of an offense this year.
Yeah, and so the Iowa, we need to make some kind of Iowa tracker to go in the corner of the screen that shows how many points per game that they're averaging to see if Ferentz's son is going to be able to keep his job or not. We'll call it the Ferentz meter or something. But they're averaging 24 points a game so far, and that's 1 point less. So Ferentz's son doesn't get his allowance if he doesn't average 25. So we'll call it the allowance tracker. That's good idea. Write that down in the good ideas column. Kentucky and Ball State. Kentucky beats Ball State 44-14. You know, not a ton to gather there. You know, I'm not even going to get into Kentucky yet because we'll have our chance to do that. But Kentucky passes the week 1 test. I'll skip over a couple of these. SMU beats Louisiana Tech 38-14. SMU is going to be the newest member of the ACC. Boston College loses to Northern Illinois. Yeah, bad. Not a good team at all. Boston College is not good. Arkansas beat Western Carolina 56-13. You got anything on that? I didn't watch it, so.
What game was that?
Arkansas, Western Carolina, and it wasn't even on TV. I think it was on some kind of streaming service.
Yeah, this is honestly the first I've heard of it. So.
yeah. Nobody really watched it. I saw some highlights, and KJ Jefferson looked real good. You know, it was a run-of-the-mill powder puff game for the Arkansas Razorbacks, and congratulations on the win, 56-13 there. Let's see. Some of these aren't even worthy of reading. All right, Auburn beats UMass 59-14. Peyton Thorne looks good. Auburn defense was pretty suspect at first. And then as the game went on, the second string allowed a couple of touchdowns, while the first string only, had allowed a pretty good chunk of yardage. But all in all, for coaching debut goes 59-14 will do just fine. And Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers are good for now. Good for now. I think it was a good start. Did you catch any of that? I was actually watching the games with an Auburn fan, so I didn't have a choice.
Yeah, well, unfortunate for you, but no, I didn't. I didn't. I didn't really see anything of this. I saw a press conference with Hugh Freeze, saying that they got to play better. I mean, typical coach speak, but not a whole lot to draw from this. It is UMass at the end of the day, who was coming off of a win. Let's give them that. But I saw Peyton Thorne only 141 yards, so looks like they did a pretty decent job running the ball. But yeah. Not a whole lot to glean from this, and I like I said, I didn't watch the game, so there's nothing in particular that I could point to just to pick out.
Yeah. Texas State beats Baylor 42-31. I did not watch this one. I didn't have much interest in it, but. I mean, obviously, this is a really bad look for Dave Aranda, right? Dave Aranda is a coach that I really like, but they give up 441 yards to Texas State overall. Texas State was 4 of 4 on 4th down. I mean, that's not a Dave Aranda style stat against one of Dave Aranda's, coach teams. That's pretty surprising to me. Baylor controls the possession of the game, has 524 yards of offense. Baylor had 416 yards passing, which also doesn't sound like a Dave Aranda stat. Only 108 yards rushing, which is probably why they couldn't control the possession clock. But all in all, Texas State gets 20 first downs on Saturday and beats Baylor 42-31. Bad start for the Baylor Bears. A bad start. I'm not going to spend too much on that, but yikes. Not good. One game that I thought was way more interesting and better than probably anybody thought, but this was a really close line whenever we did the best bets did it on Thursday this week, typically on Friday. Houston ends up edging out UTSA 17-14. This was a really good game. I think this win was really important for Houston. I think this was really, really important for Houston to not have a catastrophic season the first time you go into the Big 12. Now, this wasn't a conference game, obviously, but UTSA was ranked in a lot of people's preseason top 25. So this will go ahead and knock them all the way out, and it gives Houston a win to start off their Big 12 ship. I didn't watch the whole game or anything. I tuned in and out, and it was a great game. It really was a well played game, and Houston comes out on top, 17-14. Virginia Tech gets the win over Old Dominion. I said last week that I wouldn't be surprised if Old Dominion beat them. I didn't bet on it, but good for Virginia Tech for proving me wrong. At least one of the Virginia teams played some decent ball. And that's going to take us to the game that I was watching last night that ended up going double overtime, Texas Tech and Wyoming. Wyoming ends up edging out Texas Tech in that second overtime, 35-33 on the 2-point conversion rule, as Texas Tech could not convert. Gives the ball back to Wyoming. Wyoming scores and converts the 2-point conversion to cause sudden death in the game. This was a team that both of us were feeling pretty good about. Let me say this: Tyler Shuck is really good, badass, I will say. Okay, Tyler Shuck was better than I expected. The man could, at the end of the game, literally the strategy was put him in the shotgun, snap him the ball, and then he just does whatever his like best Johnny Manziel. Wow. That's what it was at the end of the game, and he was doing the damn thing. The only reason they went to second overtime was because of him. And the only reason they went to overtime at all was because of him. Didn't see a big supporting cast from Texas Tech. Texas Tech was let's see if I can pull that up real quick, the box score here, because honestly, yeah. So it was literally 17-0 to end the first, 17-10 at halftime, and this is Texas Tech in the lead. 17-17 at the end of the third, and then 20-20. So Texas Tech scored 17 in the first quarter and 3 in the fourth. What in the world happened?
Right.
It was so weird. It was so weird. I'm tuned in. I'm like, 17-0. Here they go. Here they go. And Wyoming comes back. I'm like, well, they'll come back in the third, and they got them wore down now. Nope. Didn't happen. Did you catch any of this last night? It was very entertaining. By the time this one was finishing up, I was laying in the bed, and me and my wife were both like very entertained by this one. Great scene there in Wyoming. Really cool setup of the stadium and everything. Even if they do have the ugliest colors in all of college football. This was a thrilling victory for Wyoming, and super happy for them. And Texas Tech has got to be a little bit down in Lubbock this morning. Yeah, pretty high expectations coming into the year, and I think this kind of puts a damper on things, don't you think?
Yeah, unfortunately, being across the pond here this week, I didn't get a chance to watch this. This game aired at like 4 a.m. my time or something like that. It was ridiculously late, so I did not get a chance to watch that and some of the Pac-12 actions this week. But of course, I will be looking forward to paying attention to that. I'm also behind like apparently when you're over here, you can't watch any games necessarily. So I had to go in and buy a VPN that set my location to America in order for me to pull up ESPN and Fox streaming app that I have. So they let me watch them for a minute, and then it was like, wait, you're not in the country you're supposed to be in, and it just shut it down on me. So I thought that was interesting, something that I didn't realize that our European fans have to go through. So, but yeah, this is disappointing for Texas Tech. Gosh, I mean, you got to hope that they can learn from it, right? 17 points in the first quarter, like you mentioned, got off to a hot start. Wyoming is a pretty tough team anyways. They're kind of pesky. They're kind of tough to put away. But ultimately, it's one you got to come away with a win. Certainly hurts them overall, but I thought it was interesting and a great win for Wyoming. Obviously, I mean, fans rushed the field, right? So it was pretty impactful for them and for that school, and it's good to see. Good to see in college football is an upset like that and a thrilling win. And I really hate that I missed it, honestly.
Yeah, that was a good win for Wyoming and a very entertaining game. Even though it knocked out my Red Raiders from my top 25, and I hate that for them. But I think that probably means a 7-5 season coming up, judging by what they have left on the schedule and everything. Because I think they needed that win to get to 8-4. So makes it a little bit tougher on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. It's not a conference loss though, so that's one consolation and silver lining as well. Let's finish up with UCLA and Coastal Carolina. This game came on late last night. I know you didn't get to see it, but UCLA looked good, man. They looked good. They gave up less than 100 yards rushing, and that's a big deal for UCLA. It really is. Whereas Coastal Carolina had 21 first downs. Most of their damage was done passing, but UCLA only gave up 345 yards. And honestly, Coastal Carolina, this is a good squad, and that's why I say they only gave up 345. This is a good squad, and they're big too. They're big and fast. If you watch them on TV, this Coastal Carolina, it's got some big boys on that offensive line, and they know how to clear the way. But UCLA holds them to 56 yards rushing, which averaged 1.6 yards per rush on 34 attempts. So nice change of pace there for UCLA. I'm somebody who was pretty high on UCLA. They played both quarterbacks yesterday. Ethan Garbers was 10 of 17. He got the start. He was 10 of 17, 121 yards, but he had 2 interceptions. And Dante Moore, the freshman, came in and was 7 of 12, 143 yards and 2 TDs, and he also threw 1 interception. And they had some pretty good success running the football, even with sacks factored in, 153 yards rushing. Michael Sturdivant had a great game receiving at 136 yards on 5 catches. Kyle Ford, the transfer, had 39 catches on 2 yards, and a whole host of other guys. Carson Steele is somebody that everybody was real excited about transferring into UCLA. He had 13 carries on 76 yards. Really, really good running back, averaged 5.8 yards a carry, and had a 24-yard run. So UCLA looks on track to me I think if everything goes accordingly, which is a big if, I think they're on track to do some good things and find their way inside the top 25 over the next couple of weeks, as their schedule doesn't really spice up until the second part of the season. So with all that being said, it's been a really great 3 days of football, man. I'm so glad it's back. There haven't been a ton of big surprises, I wouldn't say. But as they say, the night is young. We've still got Sunday and Monday. And we've got
a game going on right now. Northwestern and Rutgers,
Yep. We got football games. Like I said, the Northwestern and Rutgers game, we can guarantee that they're both not going to go winless this year. So somebody's got to win that game today. But yeah, so we will definitely keep an eye on all that stuff. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a feedback on my mic here all of a sudden. But we're gonna get back on here later this week, and we're gonna react to all of the Sunday and Monday games. We got 4 games. So whenever we do that, we will let you guys know and put up a live stream so everybody can come join. It was been a really fun couple of days of football, and we are super, super excited to talk about it with you guys later in the week. And Mason, hope you'll get to come join us, and we'll talk some more football later this week and react to the rest of the games. let's watch some Florida State and LSU tonight, man.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of the most hyped games of the season. It should be a really fun game. Comes on at 12:30 my time. I don't think I'm gonna get up and watch it or stay up tonight and watch it live, as I kind of burned the midnight oil last night. So I'll be watching the highlights, or hopefully if I can find a good stream afterwards, just rewatch the whole game because I know it's going to be a good one. But anyways, yeah, we got a good one in that, and then on Monday, Clemson and Duke, another good game, and a few more here and there for today's game. So excited to see it, excited to react with it. Hopefully on Tuesday with you, and next week got another good slate coming up. So glad to have football back. It was a fun week. We saw some upsets like we knew we would, but yeah, it's been really fun, and I can't wait to get home and watch some more.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, thanks for getting on with us, and we will see everybody later on in the week. And enjoy some more college football on Sunday night, and then Clemson and Duke on Monday night. Thank you all for joining in, and hope you'll like and subscribe, and come see us again. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.